Today, I'm going to talk about 7 sugary foods that you'll want to avoid eating if you want to optimize your health. Now, before we dive in, I want to emphasize that most of my work, as you probably know, is about communicating about food to people. Food is medicine in terms of focusing on what to add to your diet, not what to subtract to your diet. I really don't believe in making food about fear, guilt, or shame. And so I try to avoid that with my communications. But one of the things that I realize is that there are really such harms in added sugar foods that are not controversial, like they're pretty established that is the harm for your health. I thought that it would be important to actually talk about those, and so I'm going to call some of those out. I'm not going to name brands. I am not going to actually go overboard in telling you, lecturing you about what not to do. I'm just going to actually try to give you an accurate scientific framework of what you shouldn't be eating from a sugary food perspective, and give you a little bit of insight so that you're going to remember it. So again, most of the time I spend my time talking about like these incredible discoveries about the great parts about food that you should add to your diet. But today I'm going to make an exception, and I'm going to talk about sugary foods with added sugars that are very common in all of our lives, that I want you to just be mindful that these are not good for you, and I'm going to tell you a little bit more about why. All right. So the first sugary food we're going to talk about are Factory-Made Cookies. All right. Now, before we go into Factory-Made Cookies, I want to just tell you that sugar is very important for your body. We live off of sugar. We need glucose which is sugar, in our bloodstream in order to function. Our brain is one of the organs that's most dependent upon sugar. If you didn't have any sugar in your bloodstream, you'd start to feel pretty mentally challenged. You wouldn't be able to focus. All right. And then you feel physically weak. So a lot of people say, sugar is evil, sugar is bad. No. Sugar is actually really important for our health, just to be able to function normally. And sugar is part of a healthy metabolism. And the way that sugar kind of works is that it's energy, is that when we eat food, any kind of food, healthy food, unhealthy food, whatever it may be, when we actually put the food in our mouth, actually even before we start putting the food into our mouth and chew it, our body is ready to actually receive that fuel, ready to get fuel. It's kind of like a car pulling up to the filling station. It's ready to have the gas tank filled. All right, that's basically when we're eating. Our body actually produces insulin through an organ called the pancreas. Insulin is a hormone. It actually helps to take blood sugar, glucose, and bring that energy from the glucose into our cells, into our muscles, stored into our body fat cells. Actually, storage tanks for sugar. And by the way, so basically you eat a lot of sugar, you're going to blow up your fat, make it bigger and bigger, bigger and bigger. You're going to keep loading up. You're going to load up your fuel even more and more. But let's say that normal healthy diet, you're going to have some glucose, you're going to have some carbs, all that energy gets stored into your body fat. Anything extra is either in our bloodstream or can go to our liver. So that's how it normally works. All right. Now, for insulin to do its job, insulin needs a partner in order to be able to bring that blood sugar into our cells for energy, which is a healthy thing. And it relies on another hormone that's produced in our body called adiponectin, adiponectin, adiponectin. So adiponectin and insulin work hand in hand, side by side, in order to be able to take blood sugar from carbs, from foods that we eat, and bring it into our cells and stores it into our cells. All right. Where is adiponectin made? I told you insulin is made by the pancreas. You know where adiponectin is made? It's made by body fat. Body fat is an endocrine organ, a very, very important organ in our body. It produces a hormone called adiponectin, and adiponectin works with insulin to bring in blood sugar into our cells and into our muscles, and also to store that energy. So we'll have energy for later into our body fat. Okay, so this is a very simple equation. And by the way, the other thing is that people talk about the foods you eat, and you get a big glucose spike and a big glucose crash. I don't like to use that kind of language. Let me just tell you that when you eat food normally, the glucose levels will rise, insulin will be made along with the adiponectin released, and then it'll catch up to the blood sugar and it'll take it into the cell. So it's more of a kind of like a going uphill and downhill. It's kind of like a kid's roller coaster ride. It's true. In rare cases, you can actually have like a really, really steep spike, and rarely you can actually have a really big crash. But for the most part, most of us, even people with metabolic syndrome, it's more of a sort of a gentle going up and a gentle going down, not a big spike and a crash. All right. So I want to kind of like try to lower your concern about that. I'm just talking about normal, healthy regulation of blood glucose. All right. And this is important because when it comes to sugary foods, that's not normal food. Because normal food, by the way, in addition to getting the blood sugar, you're also getting all kinds of other things that are beneficial when you eat other foods. For example, when you eat a fruit or when you eat vegetables, you do get glucose, fructose from fruit, and but you also get the polyphenols from the flesh of the fruit or the skin of the fruit. You also get dietary fiber, which is found in the skin of the fruit, the flesh of the fruit, the vegetable itself. I mean, think about how stringy celery is. Think about how stringy broccoli is, but it doesn't have to taste stringy. Avocado, packed with dietary fiber. That's about as creamy as you can make it in terms of a plant-based food, packed with dietary fiber. All right. So when we talk about the value of foods that actually have sugar in it, all right, like a fruit or a vegetable, we're saying that it's actually a nutrient-dense food because although it will have energy in it, sugar of some sort, it's also going to have all these other phytonutrients, the polyphenols and a dietary fiber. And even some of the foods will even have their own healthy bacteria, like apples, for example, can contain healthy bacteria in the apple that actually makes it probiotic. All of that is healthy for us. That's nutrient dense. A food that is mostly sugar that doesn't have a lot of that good stuff, the polyphenols, the dietary fibers, and so on and so forth, that's what we tend to call empty calories. So anything that is super sweetened without a lot of natural whole food benefits, we call that empty calories. And the empty calories pretty much just goes to work that metabolic engine to be able to store that energy, bring it into cells, store it as a body fat. And this is really what we're getting to a problem. If all we're doing is eating these foods that are, quote, not nutrient dense, empty calories, and you're just getting the sugar and really stressing out the metabolism without any other real benefit. And in some cases, you might be adding harmful things into your body as well, particularly the ultra processed foods. All right. So now let's dive in. Food number one, sugary food number one that you want to be careful you need to know about. So, and I discourage you from eating them, are factory-made cookies, right? Who hasn't had a factory-made cookie? When I was in elementary school, I remember as on part of the ride to school, we'd drive by a cookie factory that would make vanilla wafer cookies. You probably know what I'm talking about. We used to roll the windows down to smell that incredible baked cookie smell, the vanilla smell that would come in the window. And then we'd be offered the vanilla wafer cookies as a snack at school. All right. And every time, even now, every time I see a box of these vanilla wafer cookies, it brings me back to like when we were kids and getting excited to see it. Unfortunately, those types of factory-made cookies that get put into a box and then trucked across the country and then stored on a grocery shelf stable for weeks or months, they're not that good for our health, right? First of all, it's got sugar in it, added sugar, all right? So that is a load of calories to our bodies that gets stored in body fat. When I was a kid, I could probably eat a whole box of these cookies. Not good for you, all right? But in addition, factory-made cookies are often made with, cookies are made with flour and oil or butter or eggs and sugar. But factory-made cookies also contain additives like emulsifiers. These are used to thicken the dough, like polysorbate 80. And these types of emulsifiers, thickeners, can damage your gut microbiome and cause inflammation. Gut microbiome, healthy gut bacteria, They lower inflammation when they're healthy. You feed them something like an emulsifier or an additive in a factory-made cookie, guess what? You damage that gut microbiome. Your inflammation levels go up. Not good, all right? Not good at all. The factory-made cookies also will often contain chemical preservatives, right? Now, why do you think those chemical preservatives are in there? It's because the factory wants to make these cookies last as long on the shelf as possible before they're purchased, all right? You'd never be able to make cookies at home in your kitchen, with a cookie sheet and have them last as long as they would a box that you buy from the grocery store. Probably sitting there for weeks, if not months. All right. So homemade cookies, they'll last a few days, right? After a week, they're not that good anymore. All right. They start to degrade. Factory-made cookies, they'll last for a long time. All right. So, and there's a reason that they might last for a long time because they actually have these preservatives that are in those. Those preservatives are not good for our bodies. All right. Those additives, chemical additives, artificial preservatives, not good. Factory-made cookies can also have enzymes added to the foods. And these enzymes actually change the texture of the food. When you change the texture of the food, you're actually changing the chemical nature of whole foods. They say one of the definitions of ultra-processed foods is where a factory has actually changed the very nature of the food itself. You add an enzyme, you mix it up, you change the flavor, and you change the texture of the food. That is an engineering of the food that takes it far away from its natural form. And of course, a lot of cookies can have artificial sweeteners. I mean, sugar is one thing, but some of them will also contain artificial sweeteners like saccharin, aspartame, sucralose. And lab studies have shown that these artificial sweeteners can damage your gut health, your gut microbiome, which then again increases inflammation, can cause your immunity to be lower, and it can actually cause problems with your insulin sensitivity. Remember, I told you, you have food, your insulin goes up, brings in that energy in. Well, some of these chemical additives can actually change your insulin sensitivity. So even though your pancreas is making insulin, it's not able to draw it very smoothly into your cells. That interferes with your metabolism, all right? And because your gut microbiome text messages your brain, gut-brain axis, when you interfere with your gut microbiome, it can even mess up your mood, all right? Because some ways that the gut communicates with the brain is to keep you in a good mood, kind of fights depression. So you don't want to be damaging that. So all these things that healthy gut bacteria do, some of these additives, chemical additives in foods made from a factory that are additives can actually undo the benefits of your own body's health defenses, starting with your gut microbiome. Damaging your gut is the last thing you want to do. So if you're in a grocery store, if you have in your grocery cart factory-made cookies, take them out of your shopping cart, put them back on the shelf. Don't worry, they'll still last there. They'll stay up there for months, all right? They're not going to go bad. Okay, sugary food number 2 you need to know about, hard candies, right? Now, who doesn't like a hard candy, right? You suck on a mint, you suck on a lemon drop. The hard candies are something that, I know that I've enjoyed when I was a kid. But, hard candies are particularly bad for your teeth, and I'll tell you why that's bad for your overall health. The hard candies take a long time to dissolve. That's how they're designed. They dissolve very, very slowly. And when you bite on them and crunch on them, which is, I like to crunch on hard candies when I ever had them, those tiny sugary bits get stuck in your teeth and the crevices of your teeth. And they take a long time to dissolve, right? Now, if there's plaque on your teeth, the bacteria that live in the plaque on your teeth can convert that sugar into acid, and the acid then dissolves the enamel in your teeth, all right? And that's what's the start of a cavity, all right? So crunching on hard candy puts a little bits like the shrapnel all over your mouth. The hard candy is dissolving slowly. Any bacteria in your mouth, particularly on plaques that are on your teeth, actually converts those sugars into acids. Now it starts to dissolve the enamel, which is a setup for a cavity. The bacteria feed on the sugar on top of that, and the bacteria grow even more aggressively. Now you've got gum inflammation when the bacteria overgrow and they cause inflammation of the gum. And that's called gingivitis. And gingivitis, gum inflammation, is associated, startlingly, with heart disease. When you have gum inflammation, it actually sets you up to have problems with your heart. When you've got gum disease, gum inflammation, it's connected to having dementia, developing dementia, and having gum disease is also connected to developing cancer of the gums themselves. You don't hear much about cancer of the gums. It's a real thing, okay? And you don't want to have that. So, clinical studies, in fact, have shown that people with gingivitis, inflammation of the gums, have 2 to 3 times higher risk of having a heart attack or stroke. Now, this is probably due to the inflammation that's caused by the bacteria in the gums. That inflammation kind of leaks out everywhere. It's kind of like a campfire that turns into a forest fire. It spreads everywhere. We think that that's actually how local inflammation, like gum inflammation, can wind up actually causing inflammation in the heart. In a study of 6,000 people over 26 years conducted by the National Institute of Health, showed that people, like older people who had gum disease, also had a 22% greater risk of developing Alzheimer's disease as well. That's a big problem. Now, in fact, in that and other studies have discovered there's one bacteria that's in the mouth that grows around the gums called Porphyromonas gingivalis. This is the bacteria. You don't have to remember this. I'm just telling you, we know. One bacteria that causes gingivitis called Porphyromonas gingivalis. That is the most common cause of gum disease, and that's linked to the formation in the brain of the amyloid plaque, the beta amyloid plaque, that is characteristic of Alzheimer's disease. Gum bacteria is linked to creating the plaques being one of the cardinal signs of Alzheimer's disease. That's pretty scary, right? Okay, remember I told you, hard candies make it easy. It's a slippery slope to getting not only cavities, but gum disease. And from gum disease, you wind up actually getting heart disease and brain illness as well. All right, not good. Okay, so hard candies, put them on your cross-off list. Sugary food number 3, sugar-free gum, right? Now, I remember sugar-free gum was a big deal when I was in high school. In fact, it was invented in the 1970s when the first research started coming out looking at, eating large amounts of sugar, like for regular chewing gums, was associated with diabetes and cardiovascular disease. So the gum manufacturers decided, oh, you know what? Let's take away the natural sugars and let's put in artificial sweeteners. Now you don't actually wind up having the added sugar into chewing gum, right? So what did they do? They put in sweeteners like xylitol and sorbitol and aspartame. And, that seemed to be okay for a long time. But the problem we now know is that those artificial sweeteners can damage your gut health. They damage your gut microbiome. And remember, we talked about this. Your gut microbiome, healthy bacteria, lowers inflammation, naturally lowers inflammation. So when you damage it, inflammation goes up. Your healthy gut bacteria helps to improve your immune system. So when you actually damage your gut microbiome, immunity can actually go down. All kinds of, and by the way, your healthy gut microbiome also controls your glucose metabolism, your insulin sensitivity. You damage your gut microbiome, and now your insulin sensitivity could be damaged as well. Now your metabolism is derailed. Not good. All right. So sugar-free gum, I would cross that one off the list as well. All right. By the way, chewing gum by itself has actually been shown to be quite good to lower the risk of gum disease and cavities as well. I think some people say it stimulates the production of saliva, and saliva can actually help to clear out some of the harmful bacteria to help the microbiome in your mouth, healthy microbiome reset. Also, it picks up particles that might be trapped in the crevices. So there's lots of reasons to have chewing gum. The question is, if you're not having sugary chewing gum and you're not having artificially chewing gum, what kind of chewing gum is there? So, TBD. Somebody needs to invent a really great chewing gum that actually doesn't add calories and doesn't damage your gut microbiome. That would be anybody who's listening. If you actually want to work on a project, that's a super great idea. Find that one out and get in touch with me. You can talk about it further. Okay. That's sugary food number 3. We talked about cookies, Factorymade cookies. We talked about hard candies. We talked about sugar-free gum. Okay, you ready for sugary food number 4? Here's one. Yogurt that actually is prepackaged with a layer of fruit. All right. Now, this is what you're going to find in most grocery stores. If you go to the area that sells yogurt, it might be in a refrigerated section, it might be an open refrigerated shelving. But I'll tell you, most of that yogurt is low fat. They proudly say they're low fat, and they actually, are sugared with natural fruits. And when you pick it up and look at it, it's really just kind of a layer of jelly that's actually in there. All right, and that's not good for you. But I want to basically clarify something first. Yogurt is a healthy fermented food. It's a probiotic food that is actually really beneficial for your gut microbiome. This is whole yogurt, whole full fat yogurt, plain yogurt is a fermented food that when you eat it, even though it's dairy, even though it has dairy saturated fat, actually lowers blood cholesterol, all right, because it's working on your gut, doing good things for your gut. And it actually lowers inflammation. And eating yogurt has been shown to lower the risk of cardiovascular disease as well. So we know that yogurt is actually a healthy food. But here's the problem, and this is why I put it in this video, it's on sugary foods, is that basically in order to make yogurts taste better, a lot of manufacturers now pre-pack the yogurt. They lower the fat, okay, which, by the way, I'm going to come back to that. Lower the fat, they put emulsifiers in there. We talked about emulsifiers earlier, damages the gut microbiome. You take something good for your gut microbiome and now you emulsify it. Now it's not good for the gut bacteria because when you remove the fat, guess what it does? The yogurt winds up becoming more liquidy. That doesn't taste like yogurt. Yogurt doesn't have that texture. In goes the emulsifiers, the thickeners. Not good. All right. But then to try to sell it, make it convenient and make it sweet, they put in a layer of fruit jelly. All right. Usually that is added sugar, sweetened jelly, and maybe it has some fruit in it. All right. But it's like probably fruit boiled in sugar. All right. And now you've got a lot of added sugar into your yogurt. And by the way, you want to check to see how much sugar is in there. Pick up the package and take a look at it. Read the ingredient label and see where sugar actually appears. It's in the first 10 ingredients. If it's up there in the first 10, there's a lot of sugar in it. And the layers of fruit jelly, the color could be artificial. There could be stabilizers or preservatives in it. Could have artificial coloring, artificial flavoring, all sorts of not goodness that you don't want to have in your yogurt. All right. So I'll tell you what I actually recommend. Buy 100% full fat yogurt, like Greek yogurt. All right. It's good. Make sure there's no emulsifiers. Make sure there's no added sugars. All right. And there's no added fruit jellies or fruit into it. And then if you want fruit, go ahead to the produce section and get some fresh, ripe, seasonal fruit. If it's the summer, get some peaches and some berries. If it's the winter, get some pears, and you can just be seasonal about it, all right? And then what you do is you cut up some fresh fruit, cut up some kiwi, cut up some strawberry, use some blueberries, sprinkle the fresh fruit, cut fruit on top of the yogurt yourself, all right? So take that yogurt out of the container, put it into a dish you're gonna eat it out of, cut up some fruit, sprinkle the fruit on top. You wanna really make it healthy, all right? Because by the way, the whole fruit, no added sugar, and now it's a nutrient-dense fruit, so you're going to actually get polyphenols, you're going to get the dietary fiber, all right? You want to make it extra healthy and do it the way that they do it in Greece when they actually have whole yogurt. Crush up some tree nuts, pistachios, almonds, walnuts. Crush those up. I like pistachios on it. Sprinkle it on it. Now you've got some tree nuts, you want some fresh fruits on top of the whole yogurt. You've actually started to make something really, really healthy. And if you really need to have a little bit of sweetness to it, above and beyond the regular fruit, I'll tell you what they do in Greece. They take honey, or an organic honey, and just take a little spoonful of it and drizzle it on top. All right, so you've got whole yogurt, you've got cut up fruit, you've got crushed tree nuts, pistachios, for example, and a little drizzle of honey. That's it, not a lot, just a little bit. And now can you imagine how tasty that is, right? Now I'm talking about like a healthy breakfast. Do not get that sugary stuff that's factory made, that is pre-sweetened, that's got added sugar into it. Make it yourself. It's going to be so much better. I guarantee you. All right. Hey there, check this out. I've got a free resource for you, and it's my favorite disease-fighting vegetables for longevity. Now, these are the vegetables that I eat myself and personally look for when I go to the grocery store or visit the farmer's market or wherever I go shopping for food. My resource for you has all the food staples that you'll want to have on hand in your kitchen. To find out what they are, all you have to do is click on the link below and enjoy. Now, back to the video. Okay, sugary food number 5 is grocery store pastries. Now, almost every grocery store you go to today will have a bakery section, right? That's where they have the breads. That's where, I mean, of course, they're going to still have the sections with packaged breads in a plastic bag, pre-sliced up, all right? I don't even look at those, all right? But they'll usually have a baked section as well, and they'll have these plastic boxes filled with different kind of baked goods. It could be cookies, it could be muffins, all kinds of things that you could actually have in there. All right, and it looks like it's freshly baked because there it is. There's the bakery right there. Cookies, little tiny cakes, muffins, frosted things. They look good. They smell good. Listen, they would, they're very tempting because they kind of satisfy your craving for some sweet snacks. But watch out. These baked goods contain all sorts of ingredients that you really don't want to put in your body. For example, they will contain high fructose corn syrup. Nope, you don't want that. They will have partially hydrogenated oils, trans fats, shortening. Nope, you don't want that either. All right. They'll have artificial coloring. A lot of these things. The 4th of July, you'll have red, white, and blue frosting on a cookie. You think that's natural? Those are natural colors? In Europe, they wouldn't allow some of these artificial colors that we allow here. Oh, and Halloween, they actually put a pumpkin with orange or yellow for a fall leaf. You think that yellow is like natural coloring? Nope. All of those are artificial. They're additives. They are chemicals, and they actually have been shown to actually have really, really not so good effects in lab research and even in some human studies as well. These cookies and baked goods all have stabilizers and chemicals that you're not going to recognize. Here's one I'm going to tell you. I saw the other day in the baking goods section. I just looked at the ingredient. Okay, sodium stearyl lactylate. All right, I'm a scientist. I even haven't heard of that. All right, I had to look it up. Polysorbate 80. That's a thickener. That's an emulsifier. Nope. These additives will compromise your health defenses. Your 5 health defenses that I write about in Eat to Beat Disease. Here's a book that I wrote, Eat to Beat Disease, right here. Your body's 5 health defense systems: angiogenesis, stem cells, microbiome, DNA protection, your immune system. All right, all of these are really important for you to help stay healthy. You take all those things that are just in that delicious looking baked good that you get when you wheel your grocery cart by the baking section and it smells good. You want to just stick one in there? No. Don't do it. Take a look at the ingredient label. If you see things that you're not comfortable with putting in your body, just put it back, all right? You can bake something at home, believe me, that you would actually trust and that would not have all those other things in there. So what I'm trying to get at is that the sugar in sugary foods is only one of the things that you should be concerned about. The other additives in factory or store-made packaged goods can have all these other health negative ingredients that you don't want to actually have. All right. So, like I said, if you want to bake good, go ahead and bake it yourself. Just go online, type healthy baked good recipe, click search, and touch a video, and have somebody who's an expert who really knows what to do show you how easy it actually is. All right. Another sugary food that you should know about: frozen popsicles. Who doesn't like a frozen popsicle, right? You remember when you were a kid, it's a hot summer day, or maybe the ice cream truck driving down the street with a musical tinkling. All right, what do you want? You want a frozen popsicle? Okay, the problem is that the frozen popsicle is really frozen water, but it's going to have high fructose corn syrup. It's going to have citric acid. It's going to have preservatives like sodium benzoate and potassium sorbate, and those bright colors, the red, orange, lime green, purple, blue. Those freeze pops, you think that those are natural colors? Nope. Those are chemical additives, artificial coloring to it. You don't want to be adding that Now, you don't want red dye in your body. You don't want yellow dye number 5, yellow number 6. You don't want blue 1. Why would you actually put any of these things into your body? It's just sugar and water and a lot of chemical additives. So what's the solution? If you want your own frozen popsicles, make it yourself. Take some fruit, squeeze the juice out of it, pineapple, pomegranate, watermelon, whatever you want to use, orange, lime, all right, and freeze it yourself. You can freeze it in an ice cube tray, or you can get a popsicle mold with the little wooden sticks and make it yourself. And that way you know exactly what's in it, all right? And if, it's going to be sweetened, but just be careful. If you have a sweet fruit to begin with, you probably don't need to add sugar to it. That's what I would recommend. All right, one more sugary food that you need to know about that's not so good, and this might surprise you: commercially made pancake syrup. All right, now pancake syrup seems like it should be synonymous with maple syrup, right? Oh, it's brown, it's thick, it's sweet. There's a picture of somebody pouring it on pancakes on the bottle or the jar or the tin, right? Okay, you think that's maple syrup? No, it's not maple syrup. In fact, pancake syrup is as far away from maple syrup as you can have. Real maple syrup comes from a tree. And if you've never seen maple syrup from a tree, go check out a video on it. These are trees, maple trees that grow, and at certain points of the year, the sap is running, and they put a tube inside the tree, and the sap comes running out, kind of liquidy. They collect it in a big bucket, all right, and then they boil that liquid, all right, to concentrate. They boil the water off the liquid, and then it gets thicker and thicker and thicker. And yes, there is a lot of sugar in it, but guess what? There's also bioactives that are actually found in the maple syrup that are actually quite good for you. These are some of the same bioactives you'd find in another plant-based food, right? Maple syrup comes from a maple tree, which is a plant. Okay, so by the way, what are some of those bioactives in real maple syrup? Gallic acid, caffeic acid, chlorogenic acid, which is also found in coffee and apples and pears, quercetin found in onions as well, camphorol, really important bioactives, good for the metabolism. So again, maple syrup, really good, all right? It's got a lot of sugar, so you don't want to be eating very much of it, but true maple syrup actually has bioactives in it as well. Okay, so what is it about the sugary food? I got to tell you, pancake syrup, right? That's not maple syrup at all. In fact, there's no maple syrup in pancake syrup. You know what it is? This cheap syrup, pancake syrup, is made to look like maple syrup, but it's really just brown colored, thickened sugar water. All right. Here's what it's really made of. It's made with high fructose corn syrup, cellulose gum, artificial coloring, artificial flavoring to make it taste a little mapley, and maybe even artificial sweeteners like sorbitol or sucralose. All right. All these things that kind of doctor up that thickened sugar water, and then they put some artificial color to make it look brown, put some artificial sweeteners, make it taste kind of like caramely, a little bit like maple syrup. Listen, if you've had real maple syrup, there's no substitute for it. You'll recognize it. And the pancake syrup, though, when I was a kid growing up, I'm telling you, I had that at school, and it's just not real, and it's full of stuff that's not good for you. And there's no useful bioactives in it. That kind of like cheap pancake syrup is an ultra processed food product, not the natural syrup from a tree. All right. So if you want to actually check it out for maple syrup, get real maple syrup instead of cheap pancake syrup. Read the ingredient label. It should say 100% real maple syrup. Now, some maple syrup is also cut with other things. Just get the pure one. You don't need a lot of it actually, because it's pretty sweet, and you can store it in a dark place. It'll keep for quite a long time. You can just read all about maple syrup. Maybe I'll do a video about it at some point. But that's something that you want to know. Don't want to do is have that cheap pancake syrup. Okay, so in summary, when you see these sugary foods, factory-made cookies, hard candies, sugar-free gum, yogurt containing a layer of fruit jelly or fruits, grocery store pastries, frozen popsicles, or cheap pancake syrup, just be warned, all right? They contain additives. They have the artificial ingredients. Those are the sugary foods. The sugar itself is not so good for your health, but you can, the sugar, you should be cutting down on sugar. But these sugary foods contain all these other chemicals and additives that you don't want in your body. All right? Hope you learned something from watching this video. Thanks very much for watching, and I will catch you on the next video. Dr. Lee out. Hi there. If you enjoyed watching this video, I know you'll love the next one. Stay here and check it out, and I'll see you there.